folks. Today, This Sea Ranch Life is bringing one of our favorite people, Leigh Anne Lindsey, to tell us some really late breaking, fascinating news about our local radio station, KGUA. Leigh Anne, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me here today, George. I really appreciate it.
Give us a quick history of the station.
Well, KGUA 88.3 FM public radio is located in the Cypress Village, Gualala, and streams along the Mendocino and Sonoma coasts. That we call that the terrestrial signal that gets in your cars or your home radios, but it's also online. We stream around the world at kgua.org on an app that I helped develop with a couple of software companies, and you can download to any digital device. Went on air about 13 years ago. It's a
Okay.
project of the Native Media Resource Center that was founded by Peggy Berryhill and Susan Rushmeyer. And so it is a project of a 501c3 nonprofit. And then they built a 103-foot tower up above Anchor Bay, the most powerful signal in this area from any other radio station here. And the key difference from most public radio stations too is that this one is completely independent. It is not an NPR station. We're not getting any grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting either. We're completely dependent upon listeners and sponsors to either be underwriter sponsorships or donors. After moving here to the Sea Ranch, where my home is here, back in 2017, and I went to one of the fundraisers Margie Hagan had at her house, and that's where I met Peggy and Susan. So I started right the next, few days at January, and I've done everything at the station that you can just about imagine doing, from production, programming, scheduling, editing, uh, engineering, remote control of the station, developing software, sales and marketing. That's a lot of my background from the
I
tech
th-
industry.
Now, some changes are happening at KGUA, and you're a big part of that, and that the management of the station is transitioning. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. And one thing I wanted to say about my particular background is that not only do I have radio experience from my early years in Aspen, Colorado's as an announcer and a commercial producer and a TV film editor, but then I went into the tech industry where I did a lot of sales, marketing, strategic alliances, and
Okay.
venture capital fundraising. So I've kind of got that leg in both world of creative and business. And when I helped the station over the last many years, a lot of those skills came into play. And then the station went up for sale for the past year because Peggy and Susan wanted to have a roadmap for retirement. Even though Peggy wants to stay engaged, if it can continue, but they just didn't find a serious enough buyer.
Mhm.
And we went through several months of trying to figure out, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? We talked to KZYX, that didn't quite work out. And we didn't just want it to be a repeater and then no coverage here on our coast, no local
Mm,
representation,
mhm.
particularly during emergencies. So we decided and came up with a plan. I just went to Peggy and Susan and said, we can't close the doors at the end of May, which is what about happened. So
Yeah.
there was the crux. And we had to figure a plan. And I didn't have the means or wherewithal running my own production company, Seastorm Studios, producing a big documentary, how I was going to also take on the whole thing, create a nonprofit that would acquire KGUA. So I said, well, look, if I can get a roadmap myself to acquire the station, here's
Mhm.
what I could do. I could come on during a period of time in management to help you and all of us see if we can't make the station sustainable, which is
Mhm.
profitable in business terms. It's making enough money to pay the bills and pay key staff, maybe a couple
Right.
of key staff and a couple of part-timers. That has to be baked in because KZYX does, other public radio stations do. We just never have. It's always been volunteer, always
Right.
volunteer. So my job now, since I've done this before with lots of companies, helping them make a profit, generate revenues, let's see if I can do that with this public radio station that's independent, if we can achieve that goal, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, then I can use a nonprofit I have created that's producing one of the new podcasts that's we're doing as a live morning show now.
Mhm.
That then that nonprofit will acquire the FCC license and the depreciated equipment. Now they'll
Uh,
keep the tower that's under Native Media Resource Center, but KGUA would then, if it becomes mine at the end of the year, going into January 1, then I'd be leasing from the tower from them. So
okay.
that's in a nutshell. So I can go into detail on some of those plans, but I asked Peggy and Susan to please stay on to do the administrative core of things. And
Right.
Peggy still wants to stay on with the writers program on Monday mornings, as well as her own show, Peggy's Place,
Hey,
on
you bet.
Tuesdays.
You
There
bet.
you go.
We couldn't get along without Peggy's Place at least some of the time, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
One of the most important functions of the station is what happens when we have local emergencies, and what role does a radio station like KGUA play in that?
You hit on the main thing that compelled me to do something because I'm the one with the most skills to try to help save the station. But want to save it more than anything because so many other people do, is that it is a critical component of our first responder network during emergencies.
Okay.
This radio signal comes from a tower that's not only 103-foot tall, broadcasting at 2,500 watts, but it also has all the PG&E equipment on it. So when everything else goes down, guess how the linemen, all the women and men that work with PG&E to help battle fires or floods or earthquakes,
Hmm.
that's how they communicate, is off of our tower.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
It is critical. I mean, that is how you keep communications going. We come together during fires and floods and cyclone bomb storm,
Yeah.
bomb storms. And
Right.
we have a lot of people who descend upon the station and we make phone calls. We are talking to everybody we can. They compile it into lists. We go on air, we announce all the information, and people will tell us during the emergencies and afterwards what a lifeline this station was to
Yeah.
them. Some people saying, the AT&T tower went down during the fires that were around Healdsburg that time, and there was the power shut off, and we didn't have any way to know what was going on, unless we went to our car on the top of the hour and turned your radio on and
Right.
listened. That it really is, for our remote communities, so important. And we have talked with Sonoma County, and we'll talk to Mendocino County because they do have budgets for emergency preparedness, and we already have conversations going. And hopefully within a short period of time, we'll be able to get some funding in from them, which will help us be
Right.
so much more prepared with procedures in place, all the things that we need to do. But it takes money and it takes people who want to dedicate their time. So
Right.
in plan, I asked Sevi Cardosi to come in with me, another longtime volunteer. She has created a great new business for our community called the North Coast Link, and it's like the Blue Book for online, but much more expanded. Since we don't have that resource anymore, this has what to do, where to go, who people are, how to contact, where the services are. And that is such a good component combination when we put in her business with my production business, C Storm Studios and KGUA. We're all stronger together, and
Okay.
we have 6 months timeline right now that we've been given by NMRC to make this happen, to make the station sustainable, which is
Right.
why we are working hard around the clock to figure the plans of how we do this. Emergency funding is the big first one.
Yeah.
And the second, we are working on new materials, pitch materials, so that we can go outside of our area and also bring in a lot of the bigger uh, businesses and sponsors and underwriters,
Huh?
bigger foundations. And to do a lot of that, we knew that we had to really expand our reach And one way we're doing that is through our new podcast. So the live shows and pre-recorded shows that we're doing now, we're going to edit them into podcast format, and those will go out on a distribution platform that goes out to wherever people get podcasts.
So I can listen to a radio program long after it's aired.
We have built up a great SoundCloud channel over the years, and
Yeah,
people have been listening to that. And that is interesting because if you look at the statistics, every day there's new listeners or people are sharing the shows. So we've got a great YouTube channel, a great SoundCloud channel, and those statistics keep improving
right.
too. The Ocean Life Symposium, people still keep listening to that and sharing it,
Yeah,
and they put it on their websites, and then of course then people listen to the on their websites, and it comes back to our statistics on YouTube. However, right now, since we're working on these podcasts, which will be much more formatted in the podcast style, that we're holding off from doing uploading to SoundCloud or YouTube until we drop it in September, and then it will go out to all podcast platforms. So that's the
right.
plan.
What needs to happen for KGUA to remain financially sustainable?
No matter how great our programming might be and what we're working on doing all these great new shows for our morning and afternoon shows, and we are talk and we are music, we are entertainment station. We're not just music, we're not just talk. It's a mix of all of those, and it reaches a broad diversity in our community from Latino, Native American, uh, European, you name it. We try to reach out to all the diverse people in our communities. However, no matter how great that is, and we have worked hard on that over the years, and I've been a big part of that with Peggy, and now Sebi is taken over as director of programming and production. But the key is going to be whether or not we can keep this station going to reach that monthly budget, to have money in the bank so we're not stressing out every month of whether or not we're going to be able to pay our bills. And for the first time, pay staff so that we're there on a regular
Mm,
basis. Those emergencies. We want to have two key staff at least there in a reasonable salary. It doesn't have to be exorbitant. We can look online and find reasonable salaries. We did that. Two part-time employees who could be in sales and marketing and grant writing, making sure our productions and our programming are great. So that takes money. And currently, our average monthly bills are about $7,000. And then you add in the staff, that comes to
mhm.
about 22,000 a month. Now,
Okay,
similar public radio station that we all know well, theirs are triple that amount. So
right,
this is not unreasonable. This is
right.
not unreasonable for a business. And yes, it is a nonprofit based independent public radio station, but
Mhm.
it doesn't mean it can't make a profit. Those
Right,
profits just go into the station and into the
that's
community.
right, right,
And we can do things. If we can keep this going, we can not only be here as an emergency resource, but we can help with the community as far as training. We can teach podcasting, editing. We could teach a lot of different courses, and we could teach how to run a radio station, how to run a business. In fact, I've got a couple of new volunteers right now, and one of them is a 14-year-old young man who's so excited because he wants to learn how to do this. And he wants to learn all the aspects of not only running a radio station, but running a business. If we can get the community to help us and get new
right.
sponsors and emergency funding, we can make this happen.
Would you tell viewers and the world out there who believe in KGUA and want to make it successful, how can they financially assist you? Where do they go to send some of their money?
If you would like to contribute to our effort to help us keep this station alive and thriving and vibrant for our community, then you can go to kgua.org. There are a couple of ways now, and I'll tell you that you can mail a check, you can bring in a check, but at our website, there is a donate tab where you can pay through PayPal. And there's also a way to donate a car if you would like, or a vehicle. It could be a boat. You can even donate stock. We've had somebody who donated Tesla stock. You can send in a check to P.O. Box 574, Walla, California, and that's to Native Media Resource Center. Because right now, again, the nonprofit overseeing this
Right,
project, KGUA,
right.
is NMRC. So write it out to NMRC.
The fastest way is to go to kgua.org and click on the donate button, and there's several ways you can do it there. You can mail a check to the address you gave us, or if you want to come and visit at the radio station, you can come by during business hours, and someone can hand you a check if they wish to. So there's a lot of
Absolutely.
ways to help out, aren't there?
And folks, this is our Hail Mary. This is that
Yeah,
Hail Mary pass.
yeah,
I used to
yeah.
play football when I was young. I was actually a quarterback and a wide receiver too, but I know what it's like to try to throw that
Right,
Hail Mary pass.
right.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Leigh Anne, thank you so much. This is congratulations on taking the management role here and doing everything possible to keep KGUA going and to make it financially sustainable in the future. I've really enjoyed this time with you.
Well, thank you, George. And I just want to give one last shout out to some of our volunteers too. Jean Berry of the Sea Ranch, Roberta Chan, and Thane Frevold, even though he's no longer able to help us now, he was a backbone for us for the longest time. He was
That's
actually
great.
doing all the scheduling of the shows and such. And then I automated everything as much as possible. That was part of what I could do to keep this station going. So
Yeah,
there are a lot of other volunteers out there, that I'd like to say thank you to, and I'd like to welcome you back as a host.
sure.
Sometimes host whenever you can bring a great show in, and we've got a couple of other great local producers as well who are stepping up.
Wonderful. We'll keep our fingers crossed. We will be opening our checkbooks and together we're gonna see KGUA successful. Thanks so much, Leigh Anne.
Thank you, George.